While the market continues to debate whether we have a bull run or go into a bear market, everyone is forgetting about one very important thing, and that's what altcoins will dominate if we do have a continuation of the bull run and a subsequent alt season for altcoins. And so, in this video, I'm going to be breaking down which altcoins I am noticing right now are destroying everything else and reacting well whilst times seem to be quite tough. Now, if that interests you and you want to find out which altcoins you should be focusing on, stay tuned. It's going to be a very important video. Before we start, I want to spend the next few minutes explaining to you why I am still bullish on this market and why I am looking into altcoins in the first place. First of all, every single time we have touched the blue line, which is the 1-year moving average, we have been in extreme fear, and that is usually a really good opportunity to buy. You can see here we rejected quite substantially recently from this line, which gives me some reason, I don't think too soon though, but a good reason that we will continue higher. I actually do believe we might touch this a second time before going higher, but we definitely aren't in market top territory where we usually see extreme greed. In addition to that, we're also seeing retail here in this purple line kind of selling off / just holding the line whilst large investors continue to buy and buy and buy. So while we have large holders beginning to buy and buy and buy, there's been a lot of panic recently because long-term holders, which are obviously different to large holders, beginning to sell ever since around February of 2023. You can see by these large aggregate spikes down the bottom over here. And what that means is that we're having guys who bought Bitcoin 7, 10 or more years ago beginning to sell off. Now, I believe the reason just simply is because we're noticing these guys be a little bit unsure, as we all are. I mean, these aren't large holders. These are long-term holders. They're just guys like you and I, possibly just retail, who got in a long time ago, have held on in a lot of unrealized profit and are deciding, hey, this market could drop down to $70,000 as per some traders telling me. I better take some profits. And that is the main reason why I think we're seeing the shift in hands. If you actually have a look at their net position change, which is this chart here, for 5-year plus holders, it's actually beginning to go slightly green. Because I think if you have a look at the large holders here, yes, they definitely did panic sell recently, okay, but they are buying back up again. These are the particular 1 to 10,000 Bitcoin in their wallet holders. So these are the mega ultra large whales. Not to mention, we're kind of seeing a change of hands as well from these longer-term holders into the ETF holders. In aggregate, we are seeing a lot more inflows in the last 12 months than we have seen outflows, especially recently. And all in all, since the ETFs were introduced back over here in January of 2024, we have just been absolutely grinding upwards at a very fast rate. And these long-term holders, I think, are essentially passing their Bitcoin onto the institutions, buying via the ETFs or via OTC desks. We know a lot of institutions came into crypto and particularly Bitcoin ever since those ETFs were passed in January of 2024, because that was around about over here, okay? And ever since then, we are seeing a massive uptick in quarterly options expiries, which usually does mean that institutions are getting involved. And that to me is extremely apparent when you have a look at the total sell side liquidity for crypto. This includes exchanges, OTC desks, ETFs, everything you can possibly think of. And you can see this gray line, which is all total sell side liquidity. So Bitcoin liquid to be possibly sold on the open markets. And this has been draining and draining ever since January, which again introduced the ETFs. You can see here before that it was kind of chopping and changing. So in my opinion, there's always going to be a narrative in crypto, especially in bearish conditions, for the price to continuously go lower. Bears will cling to anything, just like bulls will cling to anything as the price begins climbing much and much higher. You have to be aware that that means that we are towards the end, likely, of that parabolic move. And I know this is taking some time to explain to you, and you want to know what those 13 altcoins are that I'm looking at because they are growing with fundamentals. Please bear with me. It's very important you understand this, because if you do, you're not so consumed with emotions like everyone else in the crypto market right now. It will help you make more informed decisions. Now, as many of you do know, we haven't really seen the same market since October 10th, where we had the massive liquidation event occur, and we've had some subsequent ones as well. So all of this being said, it is, I think, disrupting some of the confidence in the crypto market, but I don't think we should neglect the fact that we are human, and humans are inherently greedy and FOMO-based creatures, very emotional. And so I do think while we are panicked right now, and this is a very big narrative pushed by bears that, retail ain't going to come back anymore, I think once the market starts to pump again, people will be very, very surprised. Now, we also do have QT ending as well in December, which is a really good macro tailwind. Not to mention, we do have the Fed in this black line here, which is obviously US interest rates. And in this red line, we do have a percentage of central banks that are hiking. Now, right now, only 16% of central banks worldwide are hiking. Most are cutting. And normally the Fed in the black line does lag a little behind them. So roughly 2 to 6 months, which means we are overdue for the Fed to begin cutting rates. And so that's what I think most people are expecting. Of course, there is a downside of this. You can see every time the Fed does cut rates, and follow most central banks, we normally do have a recession. So it could be a double-edged sword. There's supposedly as well supposed to be $2,000 from tariff revenue given as stimulus checks as well, which, as we know from the pandemic, will likely be a huge plus for crypto and markets broadly. The Clarity Act, which is the market structure bill, is set to pass, I think, very soon here, which is going to be a really big bonus for crypto at large. Now, don't forget as well, liquidity is pretty tight. As QT is ending, which is a big bonus, we're also likely going to be seeing in the coming days the government shutdown ending, which is, as we know, pretty much holding back markets, I think, at the moment, particularly crypto, right? We're feeling the liquidity crunch. So this is some really, really big news as well. But with that said, I'm going to hedge my bets based on what I believe is happening in the markets. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm not making anyone else do the same. It's up to you entirely. One of my core rules as a crypto investor is to not be emotional and to be logical, is to look at the data and go with the highest probability. If something is 51% likely to happen, I'm going with that over something that's 49%, as much as the 49% makes me feel very uncomfortable and on edge. And so with that said, I'm still eyeing off altcoins. And here's 13 to 14 that I'm looking at right now, as I said, that are showing extremely good signs. The first project is Aerodrome, which is one of the strongest coins in my portfolio. It just is completely stubborn. It doesn't want to listen to the negative market conditions and is always one of the first coins to react once we see market bounces. And that actually shows here in one of our bull run cheat sheet tools. We look at market dominance across 5 different timeframes and 2 different groups of coins, including Bitcoin and ETH and top altcoins and excluding them. And you can see here, it is a perfect 5 out of 5 across all of these. And what that ultimately means is people are buying this coin on the dips. One of the really big aspects, I think, of this is the fact that they're so crypto orientated. They literally buy back AERO on the open market and they lock that up. And with those locked tokens, those go into a voted escrow token, which essentially is for governance. We get yield on that. With that yield, they buy back more tokens, and they've locked up over 150 million AERO tokens, which right now is over 150 million US dollars. It's just absolutely crazy. Now, if you wanted to buy Aerodrome, you can do so on our partnered exchanges down below. Bittensor has some really good USDT rewards right now, and you can do so here on either spot or also futures, so using leverage if you were a trader, of course. There are only 2 other altcoins in this entire 140 altcoin list that we have in the community that rank a perfect 5 out of 5 across all the market dominance metrics. And one of those other 2 is Bittensor TAO. And so Bittensor has made this list as, I think, one of the best AI picks of this crypto cycle. The reason why I'm really optimistic about this in the short term as well is they are halving the supply. They're literally cutting issuance in half, just like Bitcoin, in 31 days, which means if we do see a massive bull run, this coin is even more likely to succeed. Now, if you want all those rewards we have on offer, you can pick up TAO on our partnered exchange, which is Femex. Again, all links down below. And Femex right now is giving you the chance to win an iPhone 17 Pro Max as well. The third coin on this list that ranks a perfect 5 out of 5 that I'm not going to mention in this video, but does definitely deserve a mention, is Keeta, which I do think can do some of the highest multiples in this crypto cycle. Now, revenue is a really important aspect that we need to focus on because many projects are actually falling, okay? Literally ceasing operations, as we've known, because they don't have enough revenue to continue operations, paying the team, paying for marketing, and expanding. Excluding Robinhood, Hyperliquid is the #1 spot. That is why I've added it. I think Hyperliquid is a really good hedge against these centralized exchanges. Centralized exchanges are very, very corrupt, and Hyperliquid gives us the power back. Another project that does, I think, as well, is one that is right behind it, which is Pump.fun. Now, disclosure, I obviously own Pump.fun, as I do with Aerodrome. And I think this coin is fantastic because, again, they do buybacks. So they're always pulling away from the supply. And so you can see the amount of revenue that this coin is producing. As a matter of fact, annualized, it's producing $430 million. You can't ignore that. This coin is definitely going to continue, I think, getting attention, particularly because of their live stream feature. And also, like I said, meme coins are never going to have a dull moment, I think, in crypto, as much as I dislike them. Daily active users is a really important metric. And the reason why is because this tells us how many people are actually using that product every single day. The number one ranked project in all of crypto is Near Protocol. And this happens to be one of my favorite projects. I, of course, also do own now at a very important level of resistance. We'll see how it goes. It could do an ICP and break straight through it. Near, just like every project on this list, has a bunch of really bullish factors that I do want to mention to you, but some of the more recent important ones are the fact that they have reduced the inflation rate from 5% to 2.5%. In other words, what this means is that they're literally halving the amount of money they're required to pay to the validators who secure Near Protocol. And so rather than paying them like $100 million a year to keep Near Protocol secure, they're halving it. That is in addition to the fact that they are also doubling and tripling down on what's called near intents. And near intents are a way that you can transfer any sort of value across the chain seamlessly, not just cross-chain, but also interact with Web 2 services eventually. So it's going to be pretty interesting how this progresses. And you can see here, the fees generated by this have begun ramping up insanely quickly. Right now, the cumulative fees are at $6 million. Just to show you what this looks like, from $0 to $1 billion in volume across near intents, it took them 305 days to accomplish, or a whole year almost. But then going from 3 billion to 4 billion in volume across near intents took only 8 days. Sui Network is rank 6 when it comes to daily active users. They're taking a bit of a hit this month, being down 47%. They were higher. And the reason I'm mentioning these guys and not Sui and Cello or Tron, even though I do like Sui a lot, is because it's substantially smaller in terms of market cap size, and I do think has a long way to still go, considering these impressive metrics and numbers. So again, Sui is a 1.1 billion market cap coin. It's a layer 1. The reason why I like Sui so much is because they're the fastest layer 1 EVM-focused blockchain, which means you can build Ethereum level smart contracts on them and run them seamlessly, even transferring them directly from Ethereum. Now, these guys are also planning to launch Sui Giga, which is where they kind of look at these transactions a second in a different way. Normally, people measure these in terms of transactions you're doing every single second. Well, another good way to look at it is through something called gas, right? Where you're looking at how much computing power is actually required to process a transaction. An NFT mint requires so much more computational power than a transaction I might send to you. And so they're looking at it in terms of gas, and they're looking to upgrade this to 5 gigagas a second, which is very, very quick. It equivalates to roughly 200,000 transactions per second. Not to mention as well, Morpho is also recently live on Sui, which is actually one of my next projects because Morpho also doubles into TVL. Now, TVL is a very important aspect of crypto because like daily active users, which show people using the actual project, TVL is a way to have a look at how many people are committed to that project in terms of locking up their coins or locking up some sort of DeFi project in that ecosystem. So Morpho is kind of like Aerodrome in the sense that this project really doesn't seem to listen to the market when the market tells it's supposed to be bearish. It does hold up quite well. You can see by its chart, ever since it launched, it's been pretty much sideways in this massive accumulation phase. Now, what is Morpho? Well, it dives right into lending and borrowing. As a matter of fact, this interview here with Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong, he actually mentions Morpho by name because Coinbase is using them to offer Bitcoin-backed loans.
We're able to give people really good rates now when they want to lend out their Bitcoin or borrow money with crypto, and we're using DeFi protocols underneath, in this case called Morpho, and those products have been growing really, really well.
He mentioned growing really, really well. Okay, so when you have literally Coinbase and Base de facto using Morpho to offer loans for Bitcoin in this case, then what you have is essentially 10 million monthly active users and many more to come in a bull run that are going to be using strictly Morpho for loans, which is absolutely huge. Again, the number here is $11.4 billion in deposits with $3.8 billion in total loans. And again, guys, this market cap's only $700 million right now. So that's a TVL or deposits to market cap ratio is one of the best in crypto. Morpho is generating as well a lot of fees, roughly to the tune of $287 million per year, which is around $23 million a month, or at least the last month. And the reason why we're not going to be seeing it in any of these top assets by revenue, like I showed you before with Hyperliquid and Pump.fun, is because they haven't turned on their revenue generating mechanism just yet. They're very smart. What the team's doing here is getting the product out to as many people as possible, making it as appealing. And then once they've hit product market fit, they're going to be turning on a revenue generating feature, which will allow the project to begin generating revenue, which is when we'll, I think, see it in some of the top assets by revenue. In terms of TVL, I think Ondo Finance is doing a really good job as well. Plus, these guys have a whole catalog of bullish announcements, like the launch of the Ondo Global Markets. And I think later on in 2025, possibly early 26, we will see the Ondo chain come to life. But one of the biggest and I think most underrated upgrades was when Fidelity launched their FDIT, which is like their money market fund. They're backed 99% by one of Ondo's products, which is literally a multi-trillion-dollar asset manager choosing Ondo's product for one of its main tokenized products, which is pretty impressive. But regarding TVL, it's got around 357 million right now, with specifically just the Ondo Global Markets, not its two main products. And so this really only started as of September of this year, and we're already across all of these, tokenized Ondo Global Markets products already at $350 million, like I mentioned here. Okay, and so if we add in Ondo's two main products that have been around for quite some time, the total TVL for Ondo currently comes at $1.8 billion, which of course isn't as an amazing market cap to TVL ratio, but it can ramp up very quickly thanks to all of these tokenized assets. The last project I'll mention regarding TVL is Plume, which is a real-world asset coin, very similar to Ondo, but these guys are focused more so on the retail, a person like you and I using a RWA product within crypto. Right now it's 160 million market cap and the TVL is 184 million. However, the reason why it caught my attention and why I own this project is because, again, it's focused on bringing RWA into crypto and making it usable for people like you and I. So the RWA holders right now is like way more than even Ondo at 280,000. And if you have a look at some of the reasons why, one of the main products on offer by Plume and the Plume team is Nest. You can see here, this Nest Treasury, which has around $11 million in TVL, is institutional grade yield from treasuries, offering 14% APY on a 30-day period. Some pretty crazy numbers. So I've mentioned market dominance, TVL, revenue, and daily active users, but what about one of the most spoken about metrics in all of crypto? Transactions a second. Well, in this case, the number one project by far is ICP. Now, whether you want to say, oh, well, it's only number one because it counts different types of transactions like node communication or not, I think is irrelevant. The fact that it's number one spot here just goes to show that's going to be on a lot of people's radar. Again, retail, for the most part, new money into crypto don't care about that technical stuff. They care about what's number one. As many of you know, ICP's did a massive breakout recently, so it's on everyone's mind. But honestly, for those who've known about this project and believed in the project, it doesn't come as a shock at all. It was just a matter of time. And part of the reason why is because what this project does is focus on allowing any website to be hosted on ICP, just like you would find on Amazon Web Service or Google Cloud. Essentially, it is a Web3 internet. It's got one of the biggest R&D teams behind it. And honestly, it is far and away much more advanced than many other cryptocurrency projects. People just don't realize it yet. So the full stack looks something like this, okay, where we have ICP's public chain at the very bottom. We also have Utopia, which is like a private cloud that can actually be run on top of other clouds as well. And then we have the self-writing internet, which is one of the flagship products on ICP, which is Caffeine AI. These guys are again a self-writing internet, allowing anyone with no coding experience to build a website completely from start to finish on ICP. And this also will eventually, I believe, help ICP in terms of fees and revenue. So it's all leading to a much bigger picture. And overall, I think ICP has one of the best memes, that unique aspects in crypto being a literal Web3 cloud. I'll mention Chainlink here because I think Chainlink's one of the most unbelievable projects in this industry, one that will last a bear market to come, one that will last a culling of some kind regarding regulation. This is one of the best projects. Many people still believe Chainlink is just an oracle, but they have a lot of learning to do because it is far more than that now. Matter of fact, there's far more important things it does than just being an oracle. Too much to go into, but nonetheless, I want to mention one really bullish aspect, the reserve. The reserve continuously buys Chainlink based on the revenue it produces on and off chain. This goes back to buying the token on the public markets, which you can see down here. No OTC buys, and you can actually see the average buy price of Chainlink based on all of these frequent, consistent buys. Not to mention they're working with some of the biggest people in all of the world, one of those being Swift here and the DTCC, processing trillions and quadrillions of dollars every single year. And so they essentially have access to like 11,500 banks, or at least will soon to some degree. And this is only going to be increasing the amount of fees. And then fees mean, of course, more Chainlink that be purchased via the Chainlink reserve itself. And last, but definitely not least, we have Render. Now, you might be asking, Kyron, why have you added Render to this list? This coin is just continuously trending down. It's not giving me much, right? I want to get out of it because for me, price means everything, right? So I get it, totally understand that, but I want you to remember that in most cases in crypto, if the fundamentals of the coin are still strong, if the price is trending down, it could be a situation like we can see here with NIA bouncing off the lows in this larger accumulation phase, or like ICP bouncing off from $3. Many people claimed ICP was done for, and now all those people are coming back into the coin again saying, I want a FOMO buy. So guys, understand, ask yourself, is it price or is it fundamentals? What is the reason I am getting in or out of this coin? The reason why I believe Render really isn't the main topic of conversation in AI these days is just because there's been no recent news, all right? It's kind of lacking with some of the big headlines like other projects are. But don't get it twisted. I think once those headlines come around, once people start to become attracted to AI again, I think Render will be in that conversation. Google and also Microsoft both mention Render by name because their parent company, Atoy, is very well connected in the real world. As a matter of fact, one of Atoy's main products, which Render also supports here, is Octane X, which was mentioned on the official Apple website recently. Not to mention, you can see that they actually render a lot of the graphics that happens in the Las Vegas sphere. This was all rendered by Render. And the CEO, Jules Erbach, has even gone to say that they're able to leverage the 100 to 200 million Apple GPUs. So there's obviously a big connection happening here in the stratosphere. So yes, very long video this one was, but I think it's important that I do go over some of the reasons why I am bullish on these coins, not just because they're building something really cool and unique and they have good tokenomics and so on, but because they're hitting the really important areas of this market right now. As the 10th of the 10th liquidations has proven, many of these projects are running on fumes. And so you really want to be focusing on the ones that could survive a further 3 to 5 years if it absolutely came down to it. So with that being said, thank you so much. If you have made it this far, then you can support all I do with hitting a like down below. I sincerely appreciate it. Take good care. Bye-bye.